Baba knows the way. For Joseph Baba Ifa, Baba knows the way. We follow the signs. He walks with the Orisha through sacred lines. He speaks with the ancients. He honors the drum. He carries the wisdom where we all come from.
Hey family, thank you for tuning into Our Roots podcast with Joseph Baba Ifa. We're only the strongest roots see the light, brought to you by 𝗿𝗲𝗍 got candles and more. If you haven't had the opportunity, hit that subscribe button. What's up, Phil?
Hey, happy Sunday, everybody. Yep. Good to see you, man. You doing okay?
All right.
Yeah, and guys, don't forget, we have our membership program. Real simple. Just click that button right on this video. It gives you access to 3 separate tiers. Each different tier has its different options, whether it's extra videos, private shows, discounts on merch, classes, courses, you name it. Just hit that button below and become a part of our family.
Yeah, a bunch of great stuff in the membership program. For all the members, if you know anybody that's interested or can benefit, be sure to let them know. Be on the lookout in the description for the workshop coming up, guys. 48 hours of Ifa and Oricha fun happening here in Orlando, Florida with us. It's going to be a great time. Shout out to our sponsors, Twin Precision Mobile Detailing. If you need, at your convenience, a beautiful car, once again, call these guys. They're doing amazing work. So today's episode is going to be on the concept of Ashe. Also, Ashe. Phil, you've heard this word a lot, right? Ashe.
Dude, you know what's crazy? I hear this in mainstream media.
Yeah.
And so many different terms. I've heard it before I even met you, and I didn't know what it was until, obviously, I met you. But yeah. I see it and I hear it more and more nowadays. So does that mean more people are being aware of Ifa, or did another culture steal it?
I mean, they're repping the set, you know, but like you'll see people just drop it subtly, or you're seeing it used much more now, as people are trying to get into more traditional belief systems, concepts, and habits. But yeah, it all kind of comes back to us. This is a concept that is innately Yoruba and Ifa centric, and the word Ashe literally means "may it be so" or "it's done." Right? May it manifest. They say that this was one of the first words, if not the first word, uttered by the Creator. You know, when you look at a phrase that we have within our practice, which is Ashe 𝗃𝗏𝗍𝗏 or Ashe 𝗃𝗏𝗍𝗏, basically means what we've done, we cannot undo. So it's making reference to when he finished creation, possibly, he uttered these words so that everything could enact. So obviously no one was there. We don't have a definitive answer, but it was basically one of the first noises or sounds to ever be uttered in existence. Until this day, we try to recreate those conditions by saying it, because the voice and mouth of the Ifa and Oricha priest or priestess is sacred. You know, we literally are in spaces where what we say can occur. That's why we have to be very careful when we're in consultation or we're advising somebody. It's actually taboo for me to be in a reading and tell somebody, hey, you're going to die. You can't say things like that, because you might actually be placing that spiritual
But you know?
weight. Well, yeah, I mean.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah, you know, it's no, well, what do you mean, do I know?
Like, you know that they're going to?
I mean, nobody knows that,
okay.
Ultimately. We know when we were born. We don't know when we're going to leave. But, you know, regardless of which, unfortunately, everybody is going to transition. But I don't need to reiterate that in a reading, per se. There's other ways of going about it. Ifa says that the correct way to dialogue within consultation or manifesting is, hey, be careful with this. You know, try to avoid this. You know, maybe you should incorporate this. Because Orumila and Olodumare are nothing more than our parents, right? It's the same thing. Like, when you get to a certain age, when you have teenagers and so on, we really don't tell these people what to do. We try to advise them. We try to lead by example as well. But there is no greater teacher than life. What we try to do as parents is try to mitigate those effects so it's not anything drastic, right? So it's the same thing with our theology, our corpus, and our deities. They try to give us advice. Sometimes we take it, sometimes we don't. And ultimately, we have to make our own mistakes to really learn something. Because it's like the 𝗃𝗏𝗍𝗏 says, you don't learn much in victory or as much as when you fail. You know, the most successful people have failed multiple times, learned from those mistakes, remembered the pain that came with those follies, and were able to grow from them to, get in a formula or routine of consistent success. So all of these concepts, as well as the concept of Ashe, can be found in the Odu of Oetura, or Oetura, also known as Ashetura. And in this sign, it speaks of when all of the Odus of Ifa, all 256, went in front of Olodumare and wanted to ask for their blessing or what they were going to be known for. So the majority of them asked for money, power, the classical things that are ego-driven. And when it was Ochetura's turn, he said, the only thing I want to do is be the owner of Ashe. And everybody kind of looked at him and laughed and was like, man, what a loser. And Olodumare said, Ashe, may it be so. And just like that, Oetura became the Alashe, or the owner of Ashe. And no one realized how monumental this request was, because to be able to perform anything in the universe, they had to go and buy the Ashe now from Oetura. Now, in this specific manifestation, the Ashe is being viewed as the sacred powder that is the 𝗀𝗏𝗋, right? Which is the powder that is gathered from the Osun tree via the process of decomposition, which is facilitated by termites and utilized for us to be able to perform 𝗏𝗶𝗸𝗏. The reason we perform 𝗏𝗏𝗏 in this powder is because this powder is identified as the blood of Orunmila, being that the Osun tree is seen as Orunmila, and ultimately the powder that's relinquished from it is its essence or chrism, and it's used to cleanse us during our 𝗏𝗏𝗏 process. So when you hear other spiritualities say, hey, we're going to bathe in the blood of said prophet or said entity, they got that concept from us more than likely. So there's that. But to be able to do that, they had to go to Oetura now, who had a complete monopoly on it. Imagine Rockefeller. He was the Rockefeller of 𝗀𝗏𝗏𝗏. So everybody would go, they'd buy their Ashe powder, do their 𝗏𝗏𝗏s and stuff like that, get their benefits. But he had a really great business. I mean, he had 255 stable clients that would come and buy his product. So he really didn't have to work. Oetura is somebody that, ideally will be in a space where they don't work in a conventional sense. They're going to work doing what they like, or, work doing something that doesn't take a lot of effort physically. But neither here nor there, he was banking. And, people had to deal with it because that's what he asked for. But one day, he got a little frustrated and a little angry and a little complacent or arrogant, and he decided to jack up the price. Now, this was a big issue because, once again, this wasn't a capitalist situation. This was straight communist. They had to go and buy it from him. So, specifically, the 𝗏𝗍𝗍, or the 16 kings of Ifa, went to go complain to Olodumare about what was occurring. And Olodumare said, I can't tell him what to charge for his blessing. Yeah, it's done. You guys chose money. He chose Ashe. So now you have to give your money to him to get the Ashe to do what you need to do. If not, don't do 𝗏𝗏𝗏 and, let the 𝗀𝗏𝗏𝗏 and the 𝗀𝗏𝗏𝗏s rip you to shreds. So in one version, there's an occurrence that happens where Chango threw the lightning bolt, lit the house on fire. The thunderstone marked Oetura in the ground, and because of it, that's why it's etched in our tablero sequence as always being the first Odu, being that it's the one that gives the Ashe, or divine blessing and manifestation to make the 𝗏𝗏𝗏 happen. But there's another one where the 𝗏𝗍𝗍 said, all right, we're gonna blackmail the Ashe out of him. And they got their faithful spy cohort, 𝗏𝗶𝗸𝗏, and they contracted him as a mercenary to infiltrate Ochetura's house and get the Ashe so they can make it for themselves. So 𝗏𝗶𝗸𝗏 showed up one day at Ochetura's house knowing he wasn't home to be able to, burglarize it, get the Ashe, and get out. But his wife was home, and his wife was Ochun. And when 𝗏𝗶𝗸𝗏 knocked on the door, Ochun opened it and said, how can I help you? And 𝗏𝗶𝗸𝗏 is really a very smooth character. He's really a faceless person. He can adapt very well. And, he was very polite and political, saying, hey, I'm here to see Mr. Oetura. I'm a huge fan. I want to be his student, his disciple. Could you please invite me into the home? All these different things. And Ochun kept her honor. She said, I don't let men in the house when my husband's not home. I'm not sure what you're here for, what you're looking for, but you're not going to get it, So 𝗿𝗶𝗸𝗍 failed. But 𝗿𝗶𝗸𝗍 went back, and in some versions said that he lied, saying he had actually fornicated with Ochun. So when 𝗃𝗲𝗍 came back from the trip, the maize either fabricated or just went along with 𝗿𝗶𝗸𝗍 said and said, look, the owner of the Ashe and 𝗿𝗶𝗸𝗍, dishonored his house and his wife. And 𝗃𝗲𝗍 became so angry he fell into taboo. And the taboo of 𝗃𝗲𝗍 is to curse or raise one's voice in anger. And when he did this, he went like this. He said, you fools, if only you knew the Ashe was not the powder. The Ashe is what's in my mouth. It's what's in my voice. It's my saliva. It is everything that cannot be given. But in doing that, he revealed the secret where all the other Babalawos realized they didn't have to get the powder from him. They could bless it themselves. And just like that, monopoly over. And he had to kind of reorganize and restructure his business and his life. But this Odu says that, the Ashe in the physical manifestation is the powder that we utilize. But in the metaphysical, it is nothing more than the divine grace that all of our 𝗿𝗏𝗍 or creators or Oris, destinies provides. So everyone has Ashe. Everyone has grace. Everyone has talent. Everyone has the ability to create. We were given this, and this is what separates us from the rest of the animal kingdom. Now, this Odu says we always want to use it constructively, but we don't always do that. Through experimentation, through life, through whatever the human experience influences upon us, not everyone upholds that. So it's very key to be careful with what we state, because through the processes that we go through, our bodies become divine, our speech becomes divine, our conversation, all of these different things. So the concept of Ashe is much more than anything that's physically tangible or even understandable. It's almost similar to the concept of air or wind. Even though we can't see it, we can barely feel it, but we know it's there because without it, nothing would be possible. So Ashe is the same thing. Ashe is what's motivating this video. It's what's motivating someone creating something, getting some work done, and you have to be very selective with who you share it with. Not everybody deserves a conversation. Not everybody deserves a physical contact or interaction. This energy exchange that we're constantly doing on a daily basis, on a momentary basis, can be very influential in our lives and how they go. Because if we overstimulate spaces that are not within our frequency or energy level, it could either bring us very down or make it positive and go up. So Ifa says you have to be very selective, the same way 𝗃𝗲𝗍 was, to be able to harness this and manifest it always in a positive sense that benefits you. Another concept of Ashe, before we get into another Odu, you hear as well the word Ashe, like something that is bestowed upon somebody. Like, for example, Olodumare gave 𝗃𝗲𝗍 the Ashe of the Ashe, basically, right? So in commemoration of that, when we as student Babalawos or Oricha go under apprenticeship of somebody, we technically are not allowed to practice independently until we receive the Ashe from our elders. Now, I've heard of an 𝗃𝗶𝗱𝗍, the 7 Ashes. Basically, what it's making reference to is that permission, that blessing, that grace that comes from our elders to allow us to function independently. And it's really at their disposition when they want to grant it upon us. Ideally, it's within a certain time frame based on efforts and study and discipline. But really, we just don't know. So that's why Ifa says that we always want to stay in good grace with our elders. We never want to be in a space where we're adverse to them, because ultimately our progress lies within their words and their hands, right? So in case you've ever heard of that concept as well. Or, you'll see when somebody's like invoking or trying to manifest positive things, like I'll be singing an Oriki of Ifa or a Suyere of Ifa, or we'll be asking the Orisha, or I'll be imploring on somebody's behalf, or sometimes even in the 𝗵𝗶𝗸𝗍, after each Odu is recited and the person is cleansed, the client is instructed to say Ashe, may it be so, may it manifest. What we've done, we cannot undo, manifestation. All of that is to try to cleanse the air and motivate the energy towards a positive end for the person that's sacrificing to be in that presence. Another reason why we have to be very careful how we speak and how we interact is in any of these ceremonial rooms or any of these ceremonial spaces, when we are indulging in divine conversation, we have to make sure that it is all positive. Now, you're going to hear some people say, well, 𝗃𝗶𝗱𝗏 literature is great, but it's a little too positive for me. Everything ends wonderfully and life doesn't work like that. The reason you see that literature is more geared towards the positivity or uplifting nature is because they're trying to manifest that for the person, which is fine. But then if you look at the Lukumi literature, you have some very intense pataquis over there. And they're not necessarily trying to be manifested, but it is trying to teach a lesson to avoid something. So the key is understanding that in any of these situations, like a consultation, there's energies there. And one of the biggest ones is 𝗃𝗲𝗍. When 𝗃𝗲𝗍 is present, or the metaphysical energy that is utilized via Olodumare through the Babalawos, and even in extenuating circumstances, Oricha, or whatever energy is there, whether it be the Orisha, 𝗃𝗲𝗍, etc., we are in a space where we're able to create or destroy. So whenever we're in any of those spaces, we have to be very careful how we express ourselves, because it can and will happen. So that's a lot of responsibility. There is nothing stronger than the spoken word. And whether you practice Ifa or Orisha or not, there's been studies on this, how what you say or what you think, if it's reiterated enough, it will occur, right? Everything starts with a thought, ideally. So we got over Oetura. Now we go to the 𝗃𝗶𝗸𝗏, or the 𝗃𝗶𝗱𝗏𝗏 as it's known, the backward sign of 𝗃𝗏𝗏𝗏, right? Which, once again, speaks very heavily of this concept of Ashe. So in heaven, it speaks of Olodumare, right? God Almighty, etc. Now, there's so many versions of this. Some people say it was 𝗃𝗏𝗏𝗏 and 𝗃𝗶𝗱𝗏, or the 𝗃𝗶𝗱𝗏𝗏. Some people say it was 𝗃𝗶𝗱𝗏𝗏𝗏. Some people say it was, I've never really heard 𝗃𝗏𝗏𝗏 and 𝗃𝗏𝗏𝗏. But maybe, any pair, priest, individual group. And basically they were the sons of Olodumare. And Olodumare, during his moment of creation, wanted to start spreading, certain aspects from a celestial standpoint to the mundane. So he gave them a fistful of feathers each, right? And for anybody that's gone through the 𝗃𝗶𝗸𝗏𝗏𝗏, this is going to make a lot of sense. So he told them, hey, I'm going to send you down from heaven to earth. You're going to hold on to these feathers, but don't go too fast, because then you'll lose them. And they were like, okay, we promise not to go fast. So when they exited heaven and they began their free fall, of course kids don't listen. And they started speeding. And they were like, man, this is pretty cool. So they started speeding and speeding and speeding to the point where they were going so fast towards earth, to be able to save themselves from completely crashing and obliterating themselves, they had to let go of what was in their hands to be able to brace themselves for the fall or start slowing down. When they did this and they safely arrived on earth, when they looked in the atmosphere, all you saw was feathers descending upon earth. And when they looked up at heaven, Olodumare was grinning, and they said, we sped. And he said, I know you did, because that's what kids do. And they said, we're sorry, we lost the 𝗃𝗏𝗏𝗏. And he said, no, you didn't lose the 𝗃𝗏𝗏𝗏. You actually did exactly what I wanted you to do. You spread it across earth. Now, these feathers were covered with 𝗃𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏. They were covered with the sacred powder, and apart from that, with Olodumare's divine verb. And that's why till this day, when you perform the 𝗃𝗶𝗱𝗏𝗏𝗏, or the 𝗃𝗶𝗱𝗏𝗏𝗏, usually the second tablero was where the odus 𝗃𝗏𝗏𝗏 and Oetura or Oetura Ashe are painted along with the toyale, to be able to cleanse it and reenact this divine theater, where the feathers are consecrated, the powder's consecrated, and then the person hangs on to them while rubbing them into the packet, and then claps 3 times, and it's a commemoration of when the 𝗃𝗏𝗏𝗏 was spread. So what happened here is the spreading of the 𝗃𝗏𝗏𝗏. It's another commemoration, kind of like when Oetura, blabbered out the secret. Olodumare realized that this concept or this energy cannot be withheld or harnessed from a greedy standpoint. He knew that you were going to have people such as Ifa and Oricha practitioners who were going to know things to be able to create conditions to get Ashe quicker, but everybody needed their own individual set just to get there, or their own individual molecule, particle, whatever you want to call it. So in this sign, it speaks of why the 𝗃𝗏𝗏𝗏 was spread, and everybody has an aspect of it, because without it, creation and existence would not be able to persist, right? When you look at the Odu of 𝘃𝗶𝗱𝗲 once more, they say that 𝘃𝗶𝗱𝗲 is the manifestation, even though it's where Ochun came down from heaven, or her Isalaye. They say that 𝘃𝗶𝗱𝗲 is literally the embodiment of Eshu, specifically in his characteristic of Akin Osho, which means the fearless warlock or the fearless magician. And when you look at Odus like 𝘃𝗶𝗱𝗲 and 𝘃𝗶𝗱𝗲, when they were going to, create the conditions to facilitate the Big Bang, Eshu entered into agreement with Olodumare to create the balance between light and darkness. But he said, the only thing I want is to be the mediator of your Ashe, or your divine grace, because I'm able to recognize what you have is so special that I need to make sure that the people you're trying to deposit it upon deserve it. And Olodumare was like, I appreciate that, and I'll go for it. That's why Eshu always tries to tempt us out of our Ashe. It's not that he doesn't want us to have it, but at the same time, he wants to make sure that we are ready and deserving of it. That's why 𝘃𝗶𝗱𝗲 says, on the path of greatness and success, great obstacles will present themselves. And those obstacles are placed by Eshu to see if we're able to overcome them with Iwa, or good character, to be able to achieve the Ashe, which is ultimately to achieve our goals. Because the only time anybody achieved anything great was with Olodumare's grace, right? So very key there, to always understand that the way to Ashe and success is good character. And that's why the whole religion is really based on 𝗃𝗶𝗱𝗲 and its effects on Ori. Ori is technically the spirituality, but the realigning of Ori is the whole reason for our religion. All of these processes, all of these conversations, all of these sacrifices, everything that we do is to realign Ori. And the greatest way to realign Ori is by assimilating Ifa, making the sacrifice of Iwa to have good character, because through good character is where Eshu is going to facilitate our path to Ashe, or divine blessings, right? The word Ashe, you're gonna hear it throughout various pataki and various odu. The aches, which are the ceremonial parts that are placed in front of the Orisha, can be found in odus like 𝗃𝗶𝗱𝗲, 𝘃𝗶𝗱𝗲. I recommend those videos for anybody that has the time, because we go over them pretty specifically. For example, in the Odu of 𝗃𝗶𝗱𝗲, it speaks of why there is more Ashe, or blessings, within the organic material, or offal, of the animal rather than the muscle. Where the muscle is meant to be consumed and simply enjoyed, the spiritual benefits are in the seemingly undesirable parts, whether it be, the stomach, heart, liver, kidneys, those parts that make life possible. That is where the Ashe resides, because that is where life resides. Recall that, when we look at Olodumare's expression of his daughter 𝗵𝗍, which is the divine breath, the way he chose to manifest her the first way was by saying the word Ashe. So if we look at all of these organs and them being the ones that facilitate the transfer of oxygen, or 𝗵𝗍, through our bodies to be able to have life and Ashe deposited upon us, the Ashe must be there, because 𝗵𝗍 and Ashe are inseparable, because one basically makes the other mobile and allows the other to maneuver. So that's why these parts were identified as being the most blessed, and why the Oricha requires them to be able to express a divine conversation or occurrence via them to be able to bring more Ashe to the person, right? And also because in 𝗃𝗶𝗱𝗲, we chose the drumstick instead of the liver, right? So now we're stuck with the delicious drumstick, and the Oricha keeps the liver. That's why they're eternal and we're finite. But then also in 𝗃𝗶𝗱𝗲, it speaks of it as well, or Ashe 𝗃𝗍𝗲, one of the first odus where Ashe was manifested, where it speaks of the Aches as well, and why people have to go through Orunmila to be able to have Ashe. Anyone who has not interacted with Orunmila on a ceremonial or initiatory basis is lacking Ashe. The reason being is because of all the Orishas, Orunmila was the only one who performed the sacrifice in an adequate fashion for Olodumare to give him Ashe in a way that no one else was able to. That's why, to be able to realize a divination from a ceremonial standpoint, Orunmila does not require the same conditions that all the other ones do. And when I say conditions, I say debts. So all of the other Orishas had to visit Orunmila to be able to finish their ceremonial initiatory divine process to become deities, because they needed to get the Ashe through Orunmila, who ultimately interacted with Eshu in the most personal way possible to deposit it within them via Olodumare's approval. So that's why when you see people who don't have their hand of Ifa and have gone through other processes and whatnot, they will never be fully assimilated with grace until they visit Orunmila, because it was through Orunmila that Olodumare realized Ashe was going to be administered in the fairest way and most authentic way possible, via the support of Eshu and ultimately him. So Ashe Meji speaks of that as well. In the Odu of 𝗃𝗏𝗃𝗏𝗃, there's a really great concept where Ashe becomes synonymous with luck. This Odu of Ifa says that it is better to be lucky than blessed, talented, hardworking, or disciplined. And ultimately, the luck is the Ashe. So in this Odu, it speaks of a pataki where the person was hardworking, they were disciplined, they did their sacrifices, they did everything they could, but they noticed that others were advancing at a much more accelerated rate than them, and this was greatly frustrating them. And they were trying to understand why people who were doing so much less were getting so much more. So he began to complain. 𝗃𝗏𝗃𝗏𝗃 began to complain. He said, I'm doing everything and more than what these people are. He looked to Olodumare. Olodumare had no words for him. And he said, well, when in doubt, visit Orula. And he had divination performed by Orunmila and some of his Babalawo. And the Odu of 𝗃𝗏𝗃𝗏𝗃, or 𝗃𝗏𝗃𝗏𝗃𝗏, was revealed, where Ifa said, you are unlucky. And 𝗃𝗏𝗃𝗏𝗃 said, yeah, you think? And Ifa said, if you wish to become lucky, and you wish to have Ashe and grace and blessings, you must perform sacrifice. And he said, but I work so hard. And he said, my son, it's not about work. It's about luck. Because you can have somebody that practices a jump shot 500 times. And when it's game-winning time, or they're in that last 3 seconds, they miss. But then you have the other guy who's spiritually aligned, gave a rooster to Eshu, practiced a little bit, and he'll shoot it and he'll make it. And, you know, his name will echo in eternity. It's about being aligned and blessed and all these different concepts. You have one, and with the other, you will be unstoppable. But Ifa and the universe requires this from you so that you can be lucky or full of Ashe. And the guy said, the hell with it, I'll do it. You know, Eshu was involved in the sacrifice, processes were done, and then the man became overwhelmed with Ashe and blessings and luck, and his life went wonderfully. That's why the Odu of 𝗃𝗏𝗃𝗏𝗃 says it's better to be lucky than anything else. And when we make reference to luck, we make reference to Ashe, because it is those serendipitous moments where the incredible happens that we're like, how did that ball go in? Or how did he make that catch? Or how was that doctor able to perform that surgery? Or how was that firefighter able to save that life? These incredible things, these acts of strength and pure miracle, are all facilitated by Olodumare's divine grace, which is the topic of what we're speaking of. Right? Ashe is very important. Ashe is more important than preparation. Ashe is even more important than knowledge sometimes. Like, you'll look at some people and you'll be like, man, that person's less prepared, less resources, less everything, but everything they do works. Everything is blessed. Everything is everything. And you begin to get, questionable, like, why things are the way they are. So apart from 𝗃𝗏𝗃𝗏𝗃, there's also another pataki in the Odu of Baba Ifa Meji, where it speaks of this same concept, where there was a king and a prince, or better yet, a Babalawo and his apprentice, right? One and the same. So this incredible thing would happen where a client would come and the Oluo would hit the client over the head with a rock.
Jeez.
Multiple times, just bashing his head.
Oh, no.
Like, the guy, it's a really funny pataki. I'll never forget when my godfather told it to me. I didn't believe it until I found it in the book. And, the guy's like, yeah, I came with a headache. And Orunmila picks up a rock and starts hitting him over the head with it. And the student looked and said, yo, this guy's crazy. And he's like, if he came with a headache, he's going to leave with a concussion. But when they were done, the client was fine. And he's like, thank you for taking my headache away. I'm sure it'll come back, but I'll come back and see you if it does. And Orumila said, 𝗵𝗸𝗶𝗍. And the student looked at the teacher. He's like, bro, why am I paying this guy to teach me Ifa if all he does is hit people over the head with a rock? I'm going to go do that for myself. So being treacherous, he caught the client walking to his godfather's house. And before the client got there, the student said, hey, I'll do the same thing for you, half the price. And he was like, oh, yeah, you're so-and-so student. Yeah, it sounds good. I'm sure he's busy anyway. And the student took a rock and hit the guy over the head and killed him instantly.
Oh, my gosh.
And the student picked up the body of the guy and dragged him to his godfather's house. And the godfather was like, what happened? He's like, no, I tried to do what you did, and I hit him over the head with the rock, and buddy died. He said, oh, my God, why would you do that? He said, bro, because you've been taking my money, you've been hitting people over the head with rocks. Like, why do I need to pay you to learn that? He said, this is why. And the godfather took the same rock and prayed over it. He prayed, 𝗃𝗶𝗸𝗶𝗍, and he hit the guy over the head again, and the guy resurrected. And the guy looked at Orumila, and he looked at his student, and he said, Orumila, you still got some things to teach this guy. And he said, I'll be back next week for my treatment. And the student looked at the teacher. He said, you know, I'm so sorry. I apologize. I'm so confused. Like, how is any of this possible? And the guy looked and said, me, how? Because I have 𝗃𝗶𝗱𝗏. And I have not given you that 𝗃𝗶𝗍 yet. You have not learned what I've learned. One thing is science. One thing is logic. But another thing is faith and grace. Wow. And I'll never forget, bro. My godfather dropped that one on me, and I looked and I said, man, just got to keep learning. And I learned so much by his side. And, you know, this 𝗃𝗏𝗍 has so much to teach. I mean, you know, from a student standpoint, I'm happy I brought up the Ashe concept earlier, because we're living in a time in Ifa where everybody wants everything right now. Everybody
microwave
wants
society.
Yeah, society, Ifa, everybody. This instant gratification, I think, is what's really destroying us. And I think it's being perpetuated and motivated by, you know, the telephone, the social media, the internet. Like, no one wants to go through pain no more. No one wants to go through the anguish of apprenticeship anymore. Like, you know, and I think that's what's really destroying us, because you'll look at something, right? Maybe your elder does, or maybe your mentor does, or, you know, whatever. And you're like, I could do that. But then when you do it, you realize, yo, I followed the formula exactly, and it doesn't come out the same way. Because there's so many other factors that go into it: muscle memory, experience, wisdom, you know, nerve response, all these different things. And you begin to realize, if we don't spend that time next to the people that are trying to bless us with this knowledge, we're never going to achieve a state where we're able to carry on those practices to benefit the generations to come. Because this is a cycle. You know, when you look at the Ifa apprenticeship, Orisha apprenticeship, this has been the way it's been since the beginning. You come, you learn, and then repeat and repeat and repeat. And that's why Ifa is still here to this day. But, you know, some people look, you know, people who haven't illuminated yet, people who haven't, you know, grown to the point of maturity to say, you know, why is that person doing so well? He doesn't know as much Ifa as me. He doesn't have the tablero I have. He doesn't have the literature I have. And he's killing it, man. You know, I know dudes that are living just off of powder, like Ifa powder. And, you know, they're living off of 𝗃𝗶𝗍𝗏s, bro. Like, I got colleagues in Miami. All they do is mount 𝗃𝗶𝗍𝗏 sign. All they do is mount amulets, and they're doing phenomenal, right? And then you have other brothers that are directors, that know they're a bull, that know a bunch of amazing things, and they're not even doing half as well. So you begin to realize there's so many other factors that go into success, especially within an Ifa Orisha context, other than reading and repeating. Because it's very easy to look at somebody, memorize something, and repeat it. But if you haven't gotten that elder's blessing, if you haven't gone through the countless repetitions to get that kind of precision, or even just the tranquility of the confidence that comes with those kind of rotations, you're never going to be able to replicate it. And that's what the student had to learn here. He was like, yo, my godfather hits people overhead, I'm going to do it. But when he did it, it didn't come out as well, because he didn't give himself a chance to learn what were the fine aspects of it. And then apart from that is being blessed. The godfather had good character. He was humble. He had faith. He believed in what he had. and he was able to, you know, exude it with confidence. Where the student was just thinking about the dollar or an ego or the competitor or envy or any of those other things. That's why Ifa says Ashe is above everything. And without it, none of this works. When we look at this grand corpus, this grand, you know, scheme of Ifa in the universe, this is the one thing that makes all of this move. The Ashe is nothing more than energy. And how do we develop energy? You know, how, like, people will be like, hey, Baba, how do I build my Ashe? How do I become luckier? How do I, all these different things? It comes through Iwa. It comes through being a good person. Like, for example, you know, I'll be at a restaurant. I'll have a nice bill, have a nice meal, all these different things. You know, I could easily, you know, pound the elbow on the table and leave, I don't know, a 5% tip, which is ridiculous. It's just a hypothetical. But, you know, I'm feeling good. Things are going well for me. Coño, 20%. Why not? You know, if you're in the position, like, bless people. If you're being blessed, bless others. Like, let's start sharing this cheer, because that's the only way to bring it back. Karma. And it's not that I'm tipping to get a blessing back, but it doesn't hurt. You know, it's like, I'll be frank with you. Like, I look at my situation where, you know, I was blessed to have so many children. You know, and my son snuck in there at the end, because I wasn't trying to necessarily have another kid. And then, you know, by the grace of God and all the processes involved, oh my God, look, another baby. You know, and it's really, I think, a reflection of just being a good person. Ultimately, Ashe is a result of a couple things. It's trying to know what you're doing. It's trying to have good habits, getting things done so you can be spiritually realigned. But ultimately, it comes back to Iwa. Are you a good person? Do you have a moment of gratitude with your creator or your higher power? Do you thank heavens for your destiny, no matter how difficult it has been? Do you ask for a different destiny, or do you ask for the strength and fortitude to be able to support your own? You know, how are you with other people? You know, how are you with your brothers and sisters? You know, it's all of these things go into whether you're going to be blessed or not. And then ultimately, the results and everything is in the pudding. If you look at somebody and they're doing well, you might not agree with their methods. You might not agree with their actions, but you have to think, and I'm not talking about economically, because there's plenty of rich people who aren't blessed. I'm talking about overall. You look at somebody and they're happy, they're stable, their children are healthy, their partner, their practice, their spiritual house. It's a reflection of them. So at the end of the day, everything is debatable other than results. And that's what 𝗀𝗏𝗍 said, because the student was like, that's not supposed to happen. That goes against the laws of nature. But the teacher looked at him and said, there's things much larger than nature here. Ashe is above everything. So at the end of the day, I hit that guy over the head with a rock and he did better. You did it and it came out worse. So what are we talking about here? Who's right and who's wrong? Regardless of whatever formula you want to hold it up against to. Olodumare, Eshu, Orumela, they're the ones who have the final say. So for all of the people out there who are living righteously, who are giving it back, who are not trying to bother nobody, we're trying to live peacefully and learn within their practice, and study Ifa and trying to get the best results, not for their ego, but for the client. I think that's a huge other concept here, is the purity of the heart, or 𝗀𝗍𝗍, which is the facilitating driving force behind Ashe, must be pure. You know, if you're doing things just for your own ego or not for the benefit of anybody else, how could you ever expect to get a positive result that benefits you? You know, so when you look at even concepts that are within spiritism or within Ifa, when we look at the concept of 𝗍𝗏 can only flow through a pure body, and a psyche and a heart that is pure, because anything else would interrupt it or create obstacles, just like with the muerto. For people that are in espiritismo who sit in a misa and they want to come down with the muerto or get more messages than everybody else to make a spectacle, the muerto is going to turn its back on you, like it's done for so many people beforehand. Who you are, your integrity, your pedigree, all of these things are going to influence whether you're going to be given that moment or not. And you shouldn't even be thinking about that. What you should be thinking about is studying, bettering yourself, purifying your energy, so that you could be a real option for all of these higher powers to deposit this grace into you. What do you think, Phil?
Love it, man. This was one of my favorite ones so far.
Ashe.
I love that, man. That story about the rock too.
The rock, yo, when my godfather, he picked up a rock as he was showing it to me too. I said, "You're gonna hit me," and we just started laughing.
He's gonna bonk you with it.
We were just laughing, yeah. But really great stories because it lets you know that at the end of the day, God has the final say. Like, you can know 100 prayers, you can know 100 songs, you can memorize 100 stories, but if your energy and your soul isn't clean and your intentions aren't pure, Eshu is never going to give the green light for Olodumare to deposit his grace within you. So live righteously, have Iwa, and everything else will fall into place, Don't focus on money and all these other things, even though they're important. Everything falls into place, you know what I'm saying? Just focus on studying, bettering yourself, investing in yourself, and trying to do what's good for all of us as a whole rather than just for oneself, because the biggest misconception we have is just because we are separate doesn't mean we're together. Just because you're in another body doesn't mean that by me hurting you doesn't negatively affect me. It negatively affects all of us because we are one organism. So,
love it, man. All right, guess what?
Oh, man, members. Ashe to the members.
Yeah, that's right. Dropping Ashe in the comments, which you probably already have done a million times.
Cool.
Also, hashtag Baba knows the way.
Yeah, this is popping.
I want to see some videos with that hashtag in there of you guys vibing to the song.
Yeah.
Why not?
It's a hit.
Well, no, we'll put them on the channel. I think that'd be fun.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we're going to show some love to the people who show love to you.
Love
And
it.
if you want to be a part of this, you can join our membership platform. It's real simple. Right under this video is a button that says join. When you hit that join button, you have access to 3 separate tiers, each tier offering more and more perks, whether it's extra shows, private shows, early releases of podcasts, discounts on classes, on merch, you name it. So we're going to spotlight the VIPs, the VIPs.
Let's go, VIP.
All right. So we got Alex Ruiz,
Blessings, Alex.
Trey Amador.
Hey, what's up, Trey?
Shout out to Kathy.
Hey, blessings, Mihala.
We got William Hernandez.
Bill.
We got Must Be Magic.
Okay.
We got Keys.
Okay.
We all know Keys.
Yep.
Billy Tan.
Okay, yeah, absolutely.
Juju Agunda Yakun.
Thank you, Juju.
We got Sun.
Awesome.
We got Jennifer Rowe.
Okay, blessings, Mihala.
And Ogun B.
Oh, man, Iboruboya to that brother for sure. Members, you're the greatest part of our channel. We appreciate you. Let somebody know about it. Can't wait for the workshops, guys. Make your way down to Orlando, Florida, so we can have 2 great Ifa Orisha filled days full of learning and interacting and family. Be sure to check out our sponsors, Twin Precision Mobile Detailing. Guys are doing a great work with the vehicles that we've been able to refer to them. Thank you, guys. 𝗏𝗲𝗏𝗿candlesandmore.com is up and running for all your product and service needs. We ship. Be sure to catch the audio cast on Alexa, Spotify, iHeartRadio.
All of them.
All of them. Be sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe. A big thank you from all of us here at Our Roots Podcast. And until next time, see the light.
Baba Joseph showed the path today. Baba knows the way, we follow the signs. He walks with the Orisha through sacred lines. He speaks with the ancients, he honors the drum. He carries the wisdom where we all come from.